Hello, hello. Welcome to the Sacred and Rooted podcast. This is Lisa. I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. This episode is an episode that I've thought about recording for ages because it's about a book that I have referred to more people, I think, than I've referred any other book in my life to. So I figured, why not do a podcast episode on it and just get it all out there, and then I can refer people to the podcast episode to get more information. So this episode is all about the book called Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe by Laura Lynne Jackson. It's the book again, the title is Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe by Laura Lynne Jackson. And it is phenomenal, in my opinion. So this book is a great book for pretty much anyone, but specifically, if I was going to try and, pick favorites, it would be for you if you are interested in knowing more about, the way the unseen universe speaks to us, and the symbols it uses, the signs it uses, and just to get more examples in your mind so that you can begin to open your mind to this very real, I'll say layer for lack of a better word, but this very real layer or part of the universe. No more, no less real than literally like our literal 3D world. But really fun and very magical. So it's also for you if you maybe you've been getting signs from the universe for decades and you love it. And so you want to hear more. It's a very easy read. It's an easy listen. And it just, I think if I remember correctly, she's a medium as well. And so she has lots of different stories about not only signs, but also, I'm not sure what it's exactly called, but there's, scientists now actually trying to prove this as if it's not actually already true, but science is always a little bit behind. When they're doing testing, basically, where, say I'm in my room and somebody across the country is in their room and you're trying to read the room, but you've never been in the room before, so you're trying to, from your mind's eye, pick up what's in their room and the other way around, to prove that you can actually just know that information from a distance without being there, without anything but from your intuition. I can't remember the exact actual proper word for that, but anyway, so she's a medium. She does that kind of work, I think, with the government, actually. And then also she does readings, or she used to do readings, specifically for people who have lost a loved one relatively recently, I don't think it actually matters, but a lot of times it's people that have lost a loved one who, it's like a year or two out and they're really, really struggling. And she's basically, it's a service to them to be able to communicate with their loved one, and then also start using the language of signs to really communicate on their own with their loved one, and to understand that is their loved one communicating with them. So that's the introduction. The book again is called Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe by Laura Lynne Jackson, and it is available wherever you buy books. And also, I think I actually didn't read it. I audibled it. Listened to it on Audible, because that seems to work for me sometimes a lot easier than reading does these days. So, very, very good book. I've recommended it to people who have lost a loved one recently as just a way in to, specifically these few people that I've mentioned it to, they're who I would classify as maybe not as open-minded to just all of the woo and all of the different, depths of the universe. But this book is a really simple and very practical way in to just beginning to, maybe see some of, like, crack that door open a little bit, and it's for a good cause because they obviously love their loved one a lot and they miss them and they're, having a hard time with it, and they're just, they're just not, that all of their other things are not working and they just are like willing to try something new. So I say, have you ever heard of this book? And maybe give it a read and see if any of it resonates. And I've also recommended it to people who are just interested for their own interest and looking for a good book. And here's one that I think is great. So it goes all the way, from one end of the spectrum to the other. All right, so I wanted to give you an example of signs, the way I use them. So basically, well, before I do that, let me give you Laura's kind of basic summary of her book is that any living thing, animals, people, they're all communicating with you, dead or alive. And so for her, the book is sort of focused highly on, if your loved one has passed, ask for a sign. You can be specific. The more specific you want, the better, probably. So for example, if I had a friend who had died and I wanted to, say, okay, well, I want a sign so I know that she's with me still, or, nearby. And I want it to be like a red butterfly. And so I would put that out there and then wait and see what happens. And every time, you'll see one, whether it's really like a live animal red butterfly or like red butterflies on, some kind of product or somebody's t-shirt, or somebody colored a red butterfly, on a page they were making crafts on. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an alive animal, but it is that thing. And so then you kind of know, like, oh, okay, here we go. I have a grandmother who, she died a long time ago. I don't even know when exactly. I think it was in the late 80s. And she's recently, come into my periphery as far as people that I know that are around frequently, that have died. She died, well, I think I said that already. She died back in the 80s. And there's usually a dragonfly that precedes her of some sort. So, at least lately in the summer, dragonflies, there's a lot of dragonflies. And it's not usually when there's just like a pile of them flying around, but it's usually when there's nothing else really to look at, but then like one dragonfly will kind of fly by, do some kind of loop-de-loop. It looks like it's almost wanting to talk to you if it could, and then it sort of flies on. And then immediately she comes to mind, and then it goes on from there. That's just another example. So I encourage you to give this a try, because if nothing else, it's just fun as hell. Because you'll be just opening up the communication line between, past loved ones, past animals like pets, and just seeing what's out there, like who's willing to talk to you, who's around. And it's really cool, because it always comes through. Like I can't think of a situation where I've thought of something and it never happened. And I was like, oh geez, I wonder where in the hell they went. So So that's the summary, very, very brief summary. And so she in the book she goes through lots and lots of examples of different families, their scenarios, what they might have thought. Usually the symbol or the thing that they pick is something that meant something to the person, but not always. Sometimes it can just be the most random thing. So I don't think there's any rules around it. It's just like give it a go. And then just see what happens and be open to it being like the weirdest thing. So, like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be a live animal. If you wanted to see like a horse, I don't know, like a white horse, it doesn't need to be like a live white horse necessarily, but you'll be so surprised at where you might see a white horse. And then the minute you see it, you're like, what? Anyway. So that is the super brief summary. The book is far more interesting and in-depth. And I just I had an example happen to me actually on my drive home from work today. Today work was a little bit, I guess I could say in summary, things were really shaking loose. Like there was a bunch of different work-related things going on with different people at the office. And, for weeks or months, they've sort of been in a bit of a stagnant, like stalemate where it's just like unknown, unknown, unknown. And today things sort of seem to like shake loose and like really like we were getting somewhere. And so I just was driving home feeling kind of whew, that was a lot today. There's a lot of like HR things and then they all sort of came into play today all at the same time. And so it was almost like I'm thinking like, what is happening in the universe right now? Where's the astrology at again? And to just, go home, have a nice bite to eat and, chillax. So as I'm driving down the road, and thinking, like, kind of in the background, that's what I'm thinking. I don't even know what I was thinking exactly when I saw this, but I'm driving, it's like not really rush hour, but there's cars everywhere, like in behind, in front, and everywhere around me. And we're on this nice road leading into my little town, and I was looking somewhere, and I looked up, and there was a blue heron flying across the road just a little bit above the eye level of my windshield. So I had to look up to see it, but he was literally like right there. And like, how they awkwardly kind of fly because their legs are pretty long. And anyways, and it was like flapping across the road, and I was like, what the hell? And that is I think of the cranes and the herons as sort of like my little spirit guide animals. Because I do see them often enough, but not like they're not just all over the place. And usually it's very timely where I see them when it's almost like I'm maybe not conscientiously all the time, but a lot of times I'm kind of thinking like I'm reflecting on what's happened and I'm like, I wonder, is this the right direction? Like, am I going in the right direction or what the hell's happening here? And so today it was hilarious. Like I burst out laughing basically because I was like, seriously, because that's an example of what I mean when I say, I'm probably not going to end up, I don't know if I would think of seeing the heron the same way if I was literally at the zoo and I just saw a bunch of them, say. But this one where it's just like a single heron, it's flying literally like just out of eyesight. So it's the only thing in my view, and then the timing of it is just like brilliant. Couldn't have orchestrated it better if I tried, right? And so it's just the universe, I feel like, has a friggin' good sense of humor with that kind of thing where it really strikes you. And then it's kind of like, okay, I'm good. Like, yes, I'm on the right track. And so when I first started noticing animals, a lot of my signs are animals. They don't have to be, but that's just how the universe speaks to me. one way it speaks to me. But yeah, it can be anything, but it's also what it means to you. So when I first started, paying attention to the animals, I would literally look up, like I would see an animal that I don't usually see and kind of go like, oh cool, like, and then I would go to get on my phone and Google like, fox, spirit animal, and see what came up, because I would just be curious to know like, what does that even mean? And I do that still now, because there's always different animals that I don't know what they are, as far as spirit animals go. So I do that every so often to get kind of familiar with what like Google thinks it means, but then also notice, like I said, like the timing in your life, what else is happening, and then for you, you'll kind of narrow down into like a specific meaning for you. Like, what does that animal symbolize for you? When you see one, what do you think of? And then kind of it can like zhuzh itself, mold itself together with whatever Google says. And there's, I'm not even sure. There's like the Native American kind of like animal symbolisms. And then there's sort of a more, I don't even know where the other ones are from, but there's a couple different sources, and so you can kind of see which one sort of resonates the most with you and go with that. But yeah, so that's an example of one that I would, it's usually when I'm surprised that I feel like it's the biggest kind of sign, where I'm not expecting it or where there's only one. Sometimes it's when the animal seems to actually like want to talk to me, literally, and sort of stops and looks, and we have like a moment, and then I know for sure like that's a sign. There's no way around it. So then I'll look at Google if I need to, or if it's one of my more regular ones that I already know, then that'll be fine. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Sometimes when I was younger, I used to, sometimes just be kind of mad at the universe about lots of different things, and be kind of like, man, like I need a sign, like what is going on, like I just said to you, like, am I going in the right direction? Is everything upside down, or am I upside down, or what is happening here? And so it's just like a little way that the universe can kind of like nudge you along, or like reassure you, that like, yes. Or if your sign comes back and it's like, nope, then take it and recognize it for what it is. And so it is, instead of, it's just a way that the universe can have like a more multidimensional conversation with you than you almost just in a more prayer mode, where you're just requesting things and you never hear back almost, or you're not sure until it actually happens. How's it going? How are you doing with your side of things over there? And so it is just, if nothing else, it's fun. But to play around with it and just try it out, see, does it add some joy to your life even? Does it add some laughter? Does it add some personality basically to your quality of life? And see what happens. The other thing I wanted to mention was, when I'm trying to think of another example. There was okay, so we have our cottage, or people call it a camp. In Northern Ontario they call them camps, but they're cottages depending on where you're from and whatever your lingo is. We have a cottage up there, and it's on an island, and there's just so many cranes up there, it's not even real. And so when I first started going up there, I was like, wow, this is a magical place, because these are my animals. And so we were driving around one day, and this was in the midst of a really tumultuous time at work, as far as like, what was I doing, who, we were potentially going to buy the company, and that was going a little bit of a roller coaster ride as far as like, are we doing it or are we not doing it? Maybe more like a yo-yo. But sometimes it felt like a roller coaster too. And so it was really just, it felt stagnant. It felt really like we weren't going to get anywhere. And then, so then it just, opens me up to the existential questions of like, what am I even doing here? What am I doing in this career? Whatever, whatever. So we're driving around and we were checking out this other island off the island, and we'd never been there before. So that was really neat. And it was very, very, like, there was hardly anyone that lives there. It was very isolated and desolate, but beautiful because it was untouched forest and country land. And so we were driving back, and there wasn't too much happening on the main island yet, just like old country roads. And then all of a sudden, on the right hand side of the car, about like 60 or just like tens of cranes in this field decide to like fly and take off all at the same time. And it was the most beautiful thing I've seen, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I don't know why they all needed to leave at the same time, but it was one of those things where it just gets your attention so completely that it's for you. You know what I mean? And so again, that was another example of like, okay, there we go. Like for me, the cranes are like wisdom, peace, longevity, prosperity. It's like a communion a little bit with the divine. And so it's just like, that was like a huge sign where it was just like, like God in flashing lights, or like goddess, mother, Gaia, whatever, the universe, spirit, source, in bright lights, kind of like, yeah, we're here. We are here. You are not alone. So like, those are just a couple examples where it's been like, wow, that's fantastic. And let me try and think of another one. I had a couple in mind, but I think those were the two I had written down here. Let me just check. Yeah. I think that's it for now. The other ones aren't coming to me right now. But I do want to encourage you to read the book if anything I've said interests you. It's a beautiful book, and it is very comforting to especially people that have recently lost loved ones, particularly if it was a surprise kind of or a sudden death, and it just feels kind of like a little bit undone, more so than, if they had lived a long life, and you can kind of feel like, okay, well, they had a good life. Death is a part of the whole process, and so, you can't feel too terribly about that. It's sort of inevitable. But for sure, when it's more sudden and when they're younger in age, it's much more jarring and much more of a split, it feels like, instead of just a natural completion. And so, yeah, feel free to recommend it to anyone who that may enjoy the book or find comfort in the book. And I encourage you to start looking for your signs. There was something, I'm thinking of somebody that I follow online, and they had a really good one. They had a dog named Rio, and their dog had died. I don't know, I think last summer, over the fall, something like that. And so they had asked for a sign to know, like, because they, they're into woo and everything. So they were kind of waiting to see if they felt like Rio was around or with them and that kind of thing. And so they had, I guess at some point kind of wanted to get a sign, and so they could really, be sure. And so what happened was they had asked for a sign, and I just pulling this up real quick. Hold on a second here. They had asked for a sign, and in the sign, the dog's name was Rio, and it was uh, a Home Depot kind of advertisement for summer plants. And it was hilarious because I don't know if you remember, but last summer Home Depot had it, I don't know what it was, if it was like brands of plants that were called Rio, and there was a slogan with it, and that's what I was just trying to remember what it was, but it was something like I'm here and enjoy, or enjoy, maybe it was just enjoy or have fun, something like that. Like, it was a nice happy little slogan. So this woman, she's driving down in her city, and after she's asked the universe for this sign, she's, driving down doing her errands and stuff, and she comes across this, I don't know if it was actually Home Depot or some other kind of place like that sold plants. And there's just like tons and tons of these Rio plants. It's all in pink. There's big signs, and it's like Rio is everywhere on every one of these signs. And then there's that happy logo that was like enjoy yourself or enjoy the summer or something like that. And so she was just like blown away to tears because it was like so many of the same thing, and it was so clearly like the name of her dog, and then like a really comforting motto that was basically like, don't worry, I'm good. And so that's just another one. There's like so many, so many so many signs, which I think is why I'm having trouble like narrowing down which ones are actually officially signs I should tell people and which ones are a little bit off the wall. And so I'll just keep them to myself. Maybe we'll do a part two and start talking about even more, alternative signs. Anyways, but yeah, take it, play with it, experience it for yourself. Like that's like really what it is just to give yourself, be open to experiencing it and trying it out, and just seeing how does the universe talk to you. And I don't mean literally talk in a voice, like communicate with you would probably be better. That's a much better word. Whether it's through animals, trees, flowers, anything. Like, it literally can be anything. But just to begin to ask, because this is, I wait for the animals to kind of show up at this point. But if you really have a specific thing you're wondering about, just ask. Just say, for example, you could say, I don't know, if you're looking at whether should I take this job or that job, it's like, okay, if I should take this one, show me a sign. And you could literally just leave it at that, or you could say, show me a sign of a purple flower. I don't know, that's not very specific, because you could, depending on where you live, you might see a lot of purple flowers, but like whatever you want to make it up to be, and then just see what happens. I usually, in that case, I usually just say, show me a sign, and usually there's something that, I don't know, comes to my attention, where I'm sure, like, it's not usually disputable which way it's going. But if you want to be specific, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, probably shouldn't be a purple flower, because unless you're in an area where you hardly see that, then maybe that would be confusing. You could, yeah, and if you have anyone, it doesn't even have to be someone who's died recently. It can be literally anybody you want. To start creating, to get them kind of like, I don't want to say labeled with a sign, but like to put it together that this sign is sort of for them, and then to start communicating with them that way, so that it's just a way where if you feel like they're nearby, or you have a sense that they are, the sign is just sort of like reassurance. Like it's like a doubling, like, yep, you got that right. Or if you aren't feeling them anywhere and you're kind of like wondering, are they around or not, or what's going on, and so use the sign, and then maybe that's the first real communication you've had with them. That could be your way in for sure. And then to just, as you open up to more of that, then potentially you sense things around you, potentially you hear things around you, potentially you see things around you in your mind's eye. Like there's so many ways that you can communicate with the unseen. It's amazing. And so this is just one, relatively simple, I think, and very practical, because it's really plays into our 3D world with like the signs. And so it's sort of like a bridge into the other side that, everyone can take and then see what you might be interested in next. Or for like, a more expansive repertoire of ways of communicating. You can play with a lot of other different ways too. But this is a really nice introductory way to begin to communicate with the unseen. And to start to understand and really take in the fact that the unseen is just as alive as everything that we can see in 3D reality. It's just, for some reason, the 3D reality has become kind of like our priority state, if you want to say, or place of being. But that does not mean that there's no other layers of reality to this adventure. All right, so I will leave it at that for now. Again, the book is called Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe by Laura Lynne Jackson. Highly recommend it. Couldn't recommend it enough. And yeah, if you like the episode, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It does really help the podcast spread and, find its way to the people that need to hear about it. And I do have a free, I think it's a workshop, a masterclass. It's a couple-hour long video on 3 ways to reduce stress today. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the show notes. Or if you want to go to my website is lisanicol.ca, lisanicol.ca. That is also in the show notes as well. Check it out for other ways to work with me and to be in my communities. I will see you next time. Have a great day.